Hello everybody. Jeez, my hair looks a mess. It's Kate Ryan here from Flavour.ie. It's 7:45 on Monday evening and it's time for my live Periscope. So hello everybody, hope you're all keeping well. The topic for tonight's conversation. Hi Alchemy You, how are you doing? Welcome Mid Boulevard, how are you doing? The topic for tonight's discussion, I say discussion, it's one way really, isn't it? Is everything in moderation. So the reason why I wanted to address this is because I suppose in the last couple of years, certainly in the last year anyway, there's gathered great momentum in the food world, I suppose, for a trend towards things like terms, I should say, like clean eating, and obviously there's paleo diets and everyone's gone mad for vegan diets and all the rest of it. Now, whereas like in general, I don't have an issue with anybody choosing how or what they want to eat and all the rest of it. That's not where my issue lies. What my issue lies with is, I suppose, the perception around these types of food diets and all the rest of it. So, and I suppose when you use terms like clean eating, it just kind of assumes that anything else, it is just raw food is all obviously very, very good for you. I'm kind of talking about people that kind of really kind of just dispel anything that's, say like all dairy gone, all gluten and wheat gone, all this, that and the other just completely gone from their diet, and they're on a very, very strict diet. But by kind of using things like clean eating, what that's basically saying is for everybody else, it's giving the perception that everyone else is eating dirty food, and that's not the point. I suppose these kind of ways of eating are very, very extreme, and if people go into eating these kind of ways without the full education about just how food is good for you, or how to feed yourself well, or what is good and what is actually bad for you, then it's pointless, really, is my kind of view with it. I was talking to somebody the other day that was trying to offer me a piece of cake, and I was like, actually I don't really feel like cake, and they went, but it's gluten free. And it's like, but it's still cake, just because it doesn't have any gluten in it, it doesn't actually make it healthy. It just doesn't have any gluten in it. It's still got butter and eggs and sugar and whatnot in it. It's still a cake, and cakes are not something you should be eating morning, noon and night, whether they've got gluten in or not. And it just infuriates me, actually. It kind of gets really, it's the kind of thing that really hets me up. And I've kind of said it before on these Periscopes, people that opt for vegan diets, for example, I have absolutely no problem with people kind of saying, I'm going on a vegan diet because I actually, I'm very into animal welfare, and and I don't want animals to be used for anything, whether it's food or leather goods, leather handbags, whatever. I completely agree. If you're very into your animal welfare to the extreme that you don't want to see any animal used in any other way other than their natural way that they are, just living, breathing animals that should just carry on being living and breathing, then absolutely that's fine, Glenn, that's great. But people that choose to kind of do vegan because it's just the latest food craze even, or fad, I suppose is what I was trying to say, that's where it becomes dangerous. Because if you've gone from eating all kinds of foods, the whole spectrum of food, to all of a sudden be what am I saying, to kind of cut things like, say, dairy out of your diet because you're vegan. Like, not all dairy is good for you. You shouldn't be eating cream and butter every day. And I know there's a lot of new science coming out around good fats and dairy and all the rest of it. But look, at the end of the day, nobody can deny that dairy is our best, above anything else, source of calcium. Certainly as women, having a good intake of calcium into our bodies is so important. You know, as we get older, women tend to suffer more from osteoporosis and osteoarthritis that rather than men do, and that's due to, you know, when women go through the menopause, basically they lose that calcium in their bones. It makes their bones go brittle. We need to replace it. That's just a fact of life. And you can get calcium from other sources. You can get it from nuts, you can get it from broccoli, you know, you can get it from other places. But I think something that I was talking to somebody about the other day, which kind of rang a real bell with me, was calcium is our only source of organic calcium, and that means live calcium. It's something that's actually going into your body and then going to be working as a live nutrient and going into your body. You can't get that from nuts or anything like that. So look, I guess what I'm kind of saying is that if you feel as though you need to start taking something out of your diet altogether, that's absolutely fine. It's your right, it's your choice, and 100% go for it. But just before you do it, make sure you're 100% read up on both sides of the argument. Don't just pick the arguments that appeal to you. You know, be brave and courageous and read the arguments that go against it and make your own judgment from there. Certainly don't go and do it just because it's the latest food fad or craze. That's just crazy, because, do you know, tomorrow there'll be something else, and then, you know, what are you going to be tomorrow? Do you know? So, you know, there is just certain nutrients we need in our diet. They're really important, that if you start taking huge chunks of these things out of your diet, you are going to be deficient in your body, whether that's protein, whether that's dairy, whether that's, you know, certain wheats and sugars are fundamental to you. Yes, I know, there's too much headroom in my thing, I know. The other thing as well, actually, that's happening now is there's a huge backlash coming from restaurants. Because what's happening now is, because people are now kind of proclaiming themselves as being anti this, that and the other, they're now choosing. There's some staggering statistic that's come out over the weekend that says 70% of people that go into restaurants are now effectively ordering off menu, because they're not, some people are doing it because they genuinely have a food allergy. Okay, but some people are doing it because they have a food preference, and that is driving restaurateurs up the walls. You know, they will try their very best to accommodate you, especially if you give them advance notice, especially if you have a genuine food allergy. But this whole thing about, I think the quote went something like, you know, somebody orders a dish and they request that it comes dairy free, and then you turn around 5 seconds later and you see people lashing butter onto the bread. Do you know? And it's just like, well, are you or aren't you? You either cannot eat dairy, or you're just making it up as you go along, you know. And if you're just making it up as you go along, then really and truthfully, when you're going out to dine, don't muck about, you know, just don't take the piss really with the restaurants, you know. And it goes the same as well when you go around to people's places. You go around to friends or families for dinner, do you know, really don't make their lives difficult unless you absolutely have to, because you have a genuine medical allergy to something, you know. So all this stuff about, you know, this whole thing is about people that choose to take certain food groups out of their diet. One, if you're not fully read up on the implications to your health of extracting something fully out of your diet, you're going to do yourself potentially some danger in the long term with your health, you know, just with the way that your body can handle certain things. And secondly, it's just becoming a nuisance really in the food industry for people that are insisting that they're identifying food preferences as food allergies or food intolerances. And I suppose it all just stems from this fact that all these kinds of things are in the press more, in the media more. People are starting to think more about their food, which is great. That's fantastic. That's a great thing for people to become more interested in where their food comes from, what's in it, what they're putting into their bodies. All of that is really, really positive stuff. But only do it if you absolutely have to, and if you genuinely understand that by taking, say for example, dairy out of your diet, what else are you going to substitute that loss of calcium in your diet with? And bear in mind as well that you'll have to eat absolutely tons of it. There's something like in a cup of milk, there's, you know, if you want to substitute a glass of milk for, say, like broccoli, which also has calcium, and you have to eat several heads of broccoli to make up for the glass of milk calcium value, do you know? So just have a think about it, you know. I mean, I've cut down on my dairy intake for certain things, certain rich dairies, you know, like full fat dairies and everything, because they just don't agree with me anymore. But I still take in certain dairies, and I replace my calcium with other things as well. So I'm kind of, before I made the decision and I went for it, I knew what I needed to do to counteract what I was taking out of my diet for the nutrients I'd be losing because of that decision. So I suppose it's what I'm kind of saying really, as the title of this Periscope says, is everything in moderation. You know, unless you're eating McDonald's in the morning, I'm not a nutritionalist, no, but I know how to feed myself well. And I understand that genuinely saying this, and a lot of people who in fact are nutritionalists, not necessarily even nutritionalists, dietitians, because they're medically trained people, are actually coming out and saying that the best way to feed yourself is everything in moderation. That we need, as human beings, as mammals, we need certain nutritions, certain goodness into our body that comes from eating a range of food groups. You can forget the traditional food pyramid, that really is a nonsense now that we know that. But you do need to eat things from every single food group. Not every day, but you need to get these essential nutrients in, and you can do that by eating everything in moderation and knowing the difference between something that is good for you and something that is bad for you. So going back to my earlier example of the cake, just because a cake is gluten-free doesn't make it healthy, it's still a cake. So if you don't want to pile on the weight, don't eat the cake because it has sugar in it, and we know the sugar is really, really bad for you and is the number one way to kind of pile on weight. It does bad things to your insulin, it does bad things to everything in your body, really. So kind of just stay away from that. But really and honestly, like, unless you're absolutely gluten intolerant, gluten actually isn't bad for you. Do you know, bread isn't going to kill you tomorrow unless you have a really, really bad wheat and gluten intolerance. So, you know, just kind of, if you're thinking about drastically modifying your diet, just do a bit of research first before you do it, and have a think about it. And for whatever you're taking out, the most important thing is that you research something else in the food world that you can replace that with, so your body then doesn't feel deficient. And that's the most important thing, is to feed your body, so that if your body is well, you will be well. Health is wealth, and that's where it stems from. So it's a bit of a rant tonight, I'm sorry about that, but it was just kind of something that really kind of gets under my skin. So thanks for all the hearts and for everyone that joined in anyway. I'll be posting this up on my YouTube channel so you can watch it back again, and you can keep up with everything I'm up to on my Facebook page, Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at Flavour.ie on all of those, and of course there is my website, www.flavour.ie. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again next week. Bye.